What's going on, everyone? Tanner Poppert here at Madrost and Poppett's Corner. And if you are looking for the best in physical media, make sure to go check out Bionic Records in Cypress, California. They have been in operation since 1988 and offer a wide variety of musical styles, whether it be punk, jazz, metal, rock, anything your heart desires. Go check out Bionic Records in Cypress, California. Go hit up Mike. Heck, tell him I sent you. Bionic Records, Cypress, California. What's going on, everyone? Welcome, episode 108 of Poppett's Corner. And I have the legend himself of the East Coast death metal scene. I'm super stoked for this specific interview, and I'd like to bring on Mr. King Fowley of Deceased in October 31. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, brother. I appreciate the support and just hanging in there, man. In 2021, getting ready to get back out to it.
Absolutely. What do you got going on?
We're going to be doing an October 31 is actually going to get to be the first band back out on the live shoot. We're going to get together this week for the first practice since COVID, and we're playing a show up North Carolina way on July 23rd. We're playing in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's our first show back, and with Deceased, we're just we're working on something right now called Thrash Times at Ridgemont High, which is like an all covers of thrash tunes. And we're about 1/3 of the way through the studio parts of that, and we're finishing that up here in the next few weeks, getting the rest of the guitars and the vocals and the mix done, and then we'll be back out playing around September with Deceased. It's too long, man. Everybody's been sitting too long, but boy, when I'm home and there's no COVID or no world pandemic, it's too long for me. After when I get home from a tour, first thing I want to do is go on tour, man.
So talk to me about your first recollection of just hearing music, and what was the band?
For me, the very first band that ever kicked my ass was the Beatles. My father died of cancer very young at 27, and my mother worked 3 jobs to keep me and my sister because we were very poor growing up, and my mom busted her butt so she could keep both children because the government actually didn't think my mom could make enough money to keep both of her kids. So she proved them wrong, but her sister had to help out a lot, and I went and stayed with her a lot when I was 7 years old, and I was raiding her record collection. And it was everything from John Prine to Steve Miller to the Grateful Dead. She just had all the records of the time, Jefferson Airplane, et cetera, et cetera. But the one that rocked me was the Beatles. And by then they'd broken up and everything, and those red and blue greatest hits records were out and about. And she had all that stuff, and I just loved the tunes. And she said I used to sit there, and I remember sort of sitting there shaking my fanny and just, I want to hold your hand or Ticket to Ride or Help, whatever it was. And I remember them being the first band when I walk away and there was no music playing. In my head, I could remember those tunes, so I'd still be singing the tunes when the stereo was no longer on. And so it was definitely the Beatles were the first band out of the gate for me. I would say about 74, 75. So I was about 7. I was born in 68.
Now, what made you decide to put those specific records on?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I was just literally going through everything, or she was just playing them, and I said, play that one again. This is before the album covers thing, which a lot of people get a little older and they get the album covers going, and you start hearing stuff like, for example, the Grateful Dead or something. It had some great artwork and stuff. I wasn't so blown away by the music as a kid. I wasn't a jam guy at that time for those kind of bands. But I just think with the Beatles, it was just every song was so catchy. I mean, they're just known as being that band that could write every song had a chorus,
Absolutely. Now, specifically, what other bands were you getting into around the time of the Grateful Deads and the Beatles and whatnot on the heavier side of things?
As time went on, I mean, I remember hearing Led Zeppelin. I remember hearing Deep Purple. I think I don't want to lock into this, but I think I remember hearing Black Sabbath with my aunt. But what got me to the next phase, we'll move ahead a little bit, was elementary school. My mom used to go with her mom, my grandmother, to the grocery store, the good old Grand Unions here on the East Coast. And she'd go talking to her mother all Sunday at the grocery store. Now I'm with them, and we're in the grocery store for an hour and a half, and that's an hour and 15 minutes too long for me. So my mom would buy me, or my grandmother would buy me, a roast beef sandwich and a giant brand grape juice or whatever, grape soda. And they just tell me to kill some time. We're going to yap for the week. So I ended up in the magazine section. And, you're over there looking at sports magazines, whatever the hell they had. But I always kept looking at the rock stuff, the music stuff, the teen magazines, even though I was 9 then. And I remember being this guy with blood all over him, all over that costume. And you know where I'm going with this. And it was this band called Kiss. And I'd see them in the Bay City Rollers and Cheap Trick and Angel and bands like that. Was 16 magazines what it was. And I was just like, man, this is so weird. And it freaked me out too. It creeped me out, but it something about it drew me in. And I hadn't heard it at all. And then I ended up at my elementary school, McKinley. I was staying after school because my mom was still working busting her butt, and I'd stayed there till she got out of work at 5. I was literally going to this after school rec. There was a guy there. His name was Jeff Pierce. And one day he says, "Hey man, you ever heard of a band called Kiss?" And I said, "I've heard of them, but I've never heard them." He said, "You've never heard Kiss?" And I said, "No, man." And he did something he was definitely not supposed to do. He wrote me a letter. Let me cross the street of the school, go up the hill and down the street over to his buddy's house. And on this letter, it said, "Hey man, this is Jeff over at the school. Give this kid your Kiss Destroyer record. And I'm going to jam out with this kid." So I walked over there. He gave me the record. I started looking at the record, saw them in hell. The record cover just creeped me out again. So here I am, freaked out by the music. I go back to the gymnasiums where they kept us after school. He had the best stereo in the school, the old one speaker turntable kind of thing. And he put on Detroit Rock City from that record with that intro about the man dying, going in the car crash. And again, I'm freaked out. I'm like, this is creepy. And so music's making me creepy. And the song kicked in, blew my doors off, and I was in love with Kiss. So that was my heavy band. It was the Beatles, and then it was Kiss. That was 77. And there I was. Everything was Kiss. And I got my mom to take me to the store a couple weeks later. And my first record I ever bought of my own money was Rock and Roll Over from Kiss. It was actually a cassette because my needle on my turntable was busted. So I became the world's biggest Kiss fan at age 9.
Did you start dressing up as them for, I don't know, Halloween?
Oh, yeah.
Not do? Okay.
It didn't have to be Halloween, man. It just had to, we go. I had my best friend in school was a guy named Bill Ford, and he loved Kiss too. His family was rich. His dad worked for the Radio Shack Tandy Corporation, and they had money. And he was the first guy to have the Betamax player in the area. He had he taped Kiss Meets the Phantom, the TV movie from the 70s when they played it on TV. He had all the posters, all the 8-tracks, all the records, everything. Whatever they had, he had. So we started dressing up like Kiss, and we'd have Kiss concerts in the backyard or my basement. And it was pool sticks and bullshit makeup stuff. But, every time we just, I want to be Gene. I want to spit blood. Go get the ketchup, that kind of shit. So we'd stick the pool. I actually had a pool table at my house. We stuck the pool sticks in the pockets as if they were like boom stands, and we'd put on the record, and we'd go to town, man.
Now, when was the transition for you specifically after just wanting to jam music to actually wanting to play an instrument?
That was with Bill Ford too. In 1980, he moved to Savannah, Georgia. I'm out of Arlington, Virginia. He moved to Savannah, Georgia. And when he moved there, we were determined to stay best friends because he was my music buddy from school. And he said to me, "We'll always be best friends, man. We'll always have a band together." So he moved down there, and immediately we lost touch. And then one day he calls me and, "Hey, man, we should get a band together." And I said, "That'd be great. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this?" And he said, "Well, I'm playing drums now." He said, "You should get a bass and play bass like Gene Simmons." And I was like, okay. So I went to a pawn shop and I bought this fucked up SG 4-string bass. It was a mess, but I learned a little bit of bass. And I had a friend named Andy, who was actually a year younger than me. I'm 12 at this time. He's 11. He played some guitar and he wasn't bad for 11. And Bill calls me again and he says, I want to call the band Slack Tide, SLACKTYDE. And I didn't know what it meant then, but I know what it means now. And I was like, okay, that's weird enough. And I thought we were going to be like, are we going to wear makeup? Are we going to like shoot fire? What are we going to do? And he goes, well, we should just do some cover songs at first. And I said, okay, well, how the hell are we going to practice? You live in Savannah, Georgia. Andy lived near me. He said, I'm going to give you a list of songs. My dad's going to set up a concert for us at the country club down here in Savannah, Georgia. I'm 12 years old. I take the bass. My mom buys me a little old $25 wooden amp. This thing had to be from the 50s. And Andy had a guitar and an amp because his brother was in a local band called All Points Bulletin. It was a big jazz band. They were doing like Weather Report, Pink Floyd, Toll, all this stuff, Kansas. They were really good. So he had access to this kind of crap. So I learned some songs, and the songs were Rock and Roll Fantasy from Bad Company, Kiss Love Gun, Train Kept a Rollin', Aerosmith version, and then it was My Sharona, The Knack. And then this was his stuff, and I just learned it to just be supportive. And then You May Be Right from Billy Joel. You remember that one? So
I'm not familiar with that specific track. No.
Yeah, it's one of Billy's heavier tunes, if there is such a thing. But anyway, so we started learning this, and then he goes, "Well, you got to come down here. We got a show." And I said, "Well, how the hell am I supposed to get to Savannah, Georgia?" So his mom talked to my mom and Andy's mom, and me and Andy got on a bus, and we went 12 hours to Savannah, Georgia, from DC, and just me and him, no chaperones. This is nowadays you'd never do that, but back then you could. I remember going through south of the border, which is a big touristy thing here out of South Carolina. Anyway, so we got there and we practiced for about 3 days. We were 12-year-old awful kids. We were trying. Show was set up. We went I remember the day of the show, we went there, and Bill Ford's mom bought us all shirts. Each one had a color coordination. Mine was yellow and blue. It had slack tied on it. His was red and black. Andy's was white and blue or something, whatever. And some what were those things called? Like slush puppies, some kind of weird drink. So she's like, "Here you go, man. You guys are the band. Let's go to this thing." So we go there, and it's all these parents and golfers and stuff. And we're like, "Okay, let's do this." So we start playing. I'd love to have this on. I'm surprised we don't have this on video or audio, but we started playing. And the first song was You May Be Right. And that's the first song I ever sang, because I took lead on that, and Kiss Love Gun. And Bill was a drummer. He was singing the other stuff, My Sharona and stuff from the drum kit. Well, somewhere along the lines, this little girl came along and she said, "Well, can I be in the band too?" And the parents were like, "Let her do a song." Well, she played REO Speedwagon, Keep on Loving You, on the piano, and she took the show. She was like, she was like 9 or something, but we had a blast. And that's where the band started. I mean, that was my first experience with playing on stage, whatever you want to, touring. That's what you want to call it, whatever you want to say about it. 1980.
So did you actually take your instrument on the bus?
We didn't. His dad rented amps and things. Only thing we took down there, my bass, actually, when I got there, my bass didn't work. It would not, the pickups or something were bad. He got me a bass too. It was childish, and all pun intended.
When did you actually fall into just playing drums primarily? Because I know this is primarily your specific instrument. Meaning,
well, yeah. Okay, so I tried. Okay, my mom bought me a bass. My mom bought me a bass and a cabinet, and she paid a lot of money for this thing. And I just realized it wasn't the bass that sucked. I suck. I'm terrible on bass. I'm just going to sing. Marcel's going to play drums. Doug's going to play guitar. We could probably just have a 3-piece. We found a guy named Wes. He sort of played guitar. His dad bought him a cheap guitar from the Sam Goodies, which was like the FYE of the day, $100 piece of shit. And we wrote a song. I remember we wrote a song called The Witch's End, and it was like Merciful Fate-ish. Couple riffs. I was singing high like King Diamond-ish, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, we're getting to some heavy stuff now. And by now we're into Voivod, we're into Merciful Fate, we're into Slayer, we're into Sodom. All these bands are coming on. This is 83, 84 now. So we're really into the underground. And Wes was not very good, and he got in a knife fight, and he got cut under his ribs. He couldn't play guitar. He couldn't play guitar whether he had ribs cut or not. But a friend of mine, another friend of mine was like, you got to get another guitar player. You guys should be a dual guitar player, Maiden or Priest or the band Slayer, all the bands that were coming up. And I was like, okay, but we didn't know where to go with this. Well, I went down one night to a bar called Wax Museum, and it was Twisted Sister and Queensryche. And this was You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, and Queensryche was on the EP. 19th show they'd ever played. It was in a little bar. My mom and had to get me in, and she got everybody else in too, saying she was like everybody's mom because you had to have a chaperone. So we saw this, and I was taking a Queensryche poster off the ceiling outside the bathroom, and this guy was like, "Yeah, man, I'm getting one too." We started talking. Well, this guy's name was Mark Adams, And I was like, yeah, man, we got a band, man. We're faster than Metallica. We're eviler than Merciful Fate. We're sicker than whatever. And he was like, really, man? Oh, man, I'm looking to get a band like that. I play guitar. I said, you play guitar? Oh, man, we got to get together. Well, that night I've been drinking and smoking. I don't even get his phone number. I don't even get the goddamn guy's phone number. So I go back, and Doug didn't go to the show. And Doug goes, man, you got this dude's number? Let's call him, man. Let's do it. I said, dude, I don't have his number. Well, it just so happens we went to see Black Sabbath Born Again tour. And we saw these guys there. At some point, I got his number. Let's get his damn number, right? I was like, okay. And so I was like, but we gotta find a bass player now. And at this time too, I want to say Marcel has a girlfriend and he's starting to fade. And I was like, man, we might not have a drummer. We don't have a bass player. I'm singing, you're playing guitar. And then me and Doug would jam in his apartment, and I would sit. And I said, well, I could keep a beat on a guitar case just to have a drum beat here while we're practicing. We wrote this song called Death of Christ. And I said, maybe I should just play drums, man. What do you think? He said, well, can you play drums? I'm like, no. But going back to my friend Andy, his brother was the drummer in that All Points Bullets jazz band, and he used to kind of show me beats, right? And when I went to high school, which I only lasted part of ninth grade, I was kicked out of high school in ninth grade. Got in an argument which turned into a teacher actually throwing a desk pulling me out of a desk by my hair, and I throwing a desk at her way. I was expelled. She was fired. So I was kicked out of school. But anyway, so I was like this guy in that school for the 3 months I was there. It was a black guy, and he was trying to show me like go-go beats, like these like timpani kind of like, just like DC had a big go-go scene, which was not rap, but it was like kind of like this just funky beats. And he was showing them to me, and I sort of learned how to keep the boom tap, boom tap, boom tap. And I'd watch Marcel play, blah blah blah. So just by coincidence, to this day, I could never tell you, and I got a great memory. In this closet in my little brother's room, there was a drum set in there. It was a little Mickey Mouse thing. I don't know whose it was. It wasn't mine. It wasn't his. I don't know why it was there, but we found it. And I pulled it out, and it had no kick drum. It had a floor tom. So I took the pedal and put the pedal to the floor tom and turned it like a bass drum. And I took a snare stand and I put that on top, and I just put the snare on another chair. And I said, okay, I got a drum set. We had two hi-hats that were just stuck together, didn't open or close with the clamp, et cetera, one cymbal. And I said, okay, well, I can play drums now. And he laughed at me. He's like, what? So finally, we thought we found a bass player. We went to one of these things. It used to be called the Smokin'. It was down on it was down for 4th of July in DC by the monument. We went down there. We met this black guy who was wearing a Venom shirt. We were like, oh my God, this dude's got a Venom shirt on, man. Oh my God. Well, we got so stoned that day, we forgot to get his number. We never saw him again. We fucked up. So a few weeks later, I just happened to be walking home, and this guy said, hey, man, he knew me from concerts. Hey, man, you coming to AC's party? I said, what's going on at AC's party? He said, having a party tonight. I said, I'll be there, man. So I went down there that night, and some girl walks up to me and says, when are you going to call my boyfriend so he can jam with you? I said, who's your boyfriend? She said, Mark. I said, Mark? I said, yeah, I got to call Mark. She goes, you can promise me you'll call him. He's waiting for your call. He really wants to jam with you guys. I said, okay. So I called him the next day. He got up to Doug's apartment. He came in there. Me and Doug were stoned. We were sitting there on the bed, just half-assing it. And this dude walked in, and he could play Slayer. He could play anything off Show No Mercy, stuff off, Chemical Warfare. And he made us look stupid, especially me. I looked terrible. I mean, and I was just like, look, dude, I'm trying to play drums. I have this little bit of drum set. It's a piece of crap. And when it was over, me and him walked outside, and I said, look, dude, I know we blow smoke up your ass, dude, but we really want to do this. We just have to get this right. And he was about a 7. Doug was about a 5, and I was about a 2, as far as bass. And I was off the bass anyway. I was telling the guy I have a drum set at my house, but that day was a guitar case. So he stuck with it. We stuck with it. And then I went and knew this guy, and I traded him my $2,500 bass gear. I mean, a Marshall half-stack bass gear with a Ibanez bass. The crap cost my mom $2,400 in the 80s for basically a $300 drum set. But it was a real drum set. It was a piece of crap punk rock one, but it was a real kit. So now I had a kit. And now it was me, Mark, and Doug. Marcel wanted to play still, and he would show up and we would jam with him a little bit, but most of the time he would just leave And he still had his kit, which was a nice Ludwig. So if we were somewhere, we were jamming at somebody's house with his stuff, when he left, I'd just play his stuff. And we were just we weren't going behind his back, but he wasn't there. So we were just like, here, you play drums now. Let's see how this goes. So I became drummer then. And what the final curtain with all that with Marcel was, we set up our first show. One of our first shows was a place called the Hell House. And we were just going to go play. We learned Sodom covers, Bathory covers, Slayer covers, Hyrax covers, DRI covers, Motorhead covers. And we were going to go play a party, no vocals, nothing. Just it was going to be me on drums and Mark on guitar and Doug on guitar. And I asked Marcel if I could borrow his drum set for this show, and he said, "Yeah, man, that day, call me, I'll get it for you." Well, he didn't pick up the phone that day, so I went to his house, and his mother was there, and I took his kit, and we went and played this show. Well, he had found a flyer for this show, and he showed up halfway through it, and he said, "Man, that's fucked up. You stole my kit." And he had the police with him. I walked up to him and I punched him I smacked him more so in the face. I said, "Fuck you, man. This is bullshit. We're here, man. We're playing, dude. This is bullcrap." And the cops got all freaked out and they said, "Look, man, show's over. Get his drum set back home to him or we're going to take you down juvenile hall, man." I was like, wow, this is crazy. So he left with the cops. I loaded his drum set in the car. As I drove back to his house, I went down a highway called Route 66. This is a newer one on our side of the country. And I just started throwing his drum set out the window. Fuck this dude. Ba-bap, ba-bap. There goes his toms. There goes his hardware. Here, let me get a cymbal. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not throwing the cymbals out. I'm keeping the cymbals for me. So we had a big falling out then, me and him. It was later fixed, but he threw a hissy fit for no reason. And he knew later on, he apologized to me for coming there and acting a fool because all I wanted to do was borrow the kit that we'd asked to borrow anyway. I mean, the show was going on. So now it's me on drums, Mark on guitar, and Doug on guitar. And we start getting heavily into drugs.
Okay.
This is like 84, 85. Drugs are metal and drugs are our life at this point. And at this point, Mark and Doug are getting really good. I'm trying to learn to play the drums. I'm keeping up in a hyperactive way because I want to play the fastest. I want to be the fastest, craziest heavy metal band. And I'm getting caught up in cocaine, heavy. Mark's into PCP, and we're getting just crazy. We're like 17, 18-year-old kids now. We're starting to write our own songs. After the Bloodshed, Gut Wrench, Eaten by Disease. These are the earliest songs. Sick Thrash, Funeral of Gore. And I like what we're doing. And it's all sounding good because we're pretty much mentally twisted because of everything we're doing outside of the band. So one night we're having a party at Mark's house. His parents are on summer vacation or something. And we hear a friend of ours, actually the guy that told me about AC's party, his name was Rob Sturzel. He said, he was playing, and I said to him, "Man, I didn't know you played guitar. Are you playing Creator, Endless Pain over there on guitar?" He was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Damn, you're pretty good. You play bass?" Now, we'd already played 2 shows in friends' basements and birthday parties, and he'd be the only person there that knew what we were playing, and he'd be in the front headbanging. The only guy watching us. Everybody else was like, yeah, whatever. We're learning. And we were like, "Yeah, man." We're like, "There's an initiation, though." And he's like, what initiation? What do you mean? I said, "You got to smoke PCP with us." And this guy was a hell of a drinker. But he said, "Okay." And he went. I'm sure you know what that can do to a man. And so we did this, and he was in the band. And this was 1986. We wrote a couple more tunes. We got him catching up on all the stuff. And then I think it was September of 86, we went to our friends. We were jamming in his attic. A guy named John Reed. We went up in his attic, and we paid the guy that actually sold me the drums, traded me the drum set for the bass amp and the bass, $20 and a case of beer. And he came and recorded with a 7-track Fostex. The 8-track didn't work. It was broken. And he recorded our first demo in 1986 called The Evil Side of Religion.
Now, when did Deceased kind of come into play for you? Because I think it was around 85, correct?
I one day said, "I like this name. What do y'all think of Deceased?" And everybody said, "Yeah, let's be that." So Evil Axe was stupid. Mace was taken. The other names were stupid. Deceased fit us to a core. It was just us. I can remember us buying a Reaper bong. was a shape like a reaper, and smoking PCP, dry PCP hits out of it, and just thinking about our own deaths. That's how weird we were back then. We were just weird, you know. And yeah, and the names was stuck. So we've actually been around. I mean, honestly and truly, almost since '83. Me and Doug's earliest days of Death of Christ is like early '84. We had that, but Deceased as a band, like right now, I would say we're in our 36th year as Deceased, because I think it was around January, February of '85 we got the name. But '84, all the music was still there.
So okay, let's go forward to just you. I didn't know this. I didn't know Deceased was the first band to get signed to Relapse. So where is that connection?
Well, it's a few years off. Just a quick jump to get you there. So we had a tragedy. I don't know if you know about the tragedy. We had a tragedy after we did the Evil Side of Religion demo. I decided that we were going to give the tape away for free to anybody that wanted it. Now we were crooks. I was definitely stealing. I was a kleptomaniac back then. I'd go into drugstores and steal every blank tape there was. And I had the boom box at home, and I just dubbed the tapes. And over 2,000 tapes went out of that first demo. And my mom was giving me stamps. Our moms were giving us money for postage, envelopes, all of it. And so that was our way of getting things started. Now, we played no shows with me on vocals for that whole time. But unfortunately, in 1987, all those drugs caught up with me. I almost died in 1987 from cocaine. I basically what happened was my girlfriend and me were driving around. She knew I smoked pot. She knew I did a little bit of cocaine. She never knew. I mean, I would go a week without sleeping. I had one of my best friends, sister's husbands was one of the biggest cocaine dealers on the East Coast. He's in jail for life because of it. That's how bad it was. He's been in jail since the '80s. He was busted a few years after I'm telling this story. But anyway, we were driving Mark home one day, and I started having a freak out. My heart started just going nuts. 240 plus beats a minute. She was counting it on the stereo in the car, the clock on the car. I turned white. I thought I had a stroke. I'm not religious at all, but I remember looking up going, if there's anybody up there, man, if you make this go away, I'll never do cocaine again. And it went away. And I never touched cocaine again. But 2 weeks later, I was up at Doug's doing some bong hits, and I get the same feeling again. And I said, it's not the cocaine. Something's wrong with me. So I went home, and I cold turkeyed it. And I was a bad drug addict for 4 good years. I was just telling my wife the other day, I did about 10 years of drug abuse in 4 years. And this is in my teens. I mean, we were doing thousands of dollars in cocaine, PCP. I mean, when I wasn't a drinker, but if I drank, it was going to be 190 proof alcohol. You know, I was going to pass out. It's all extreme shit for me. Anyway, I quit. I got really bad. I lost so much weight. I wasn't that big then. I got panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I stayed in my house for almost a full year, 1 full year. I went back. I resorted back to basically infancy. I had to sleep with my mother. When she went to work, I'd have to be asleep. When she got home from work, I'd have to be awake. I'd want to be with her. All I wanted to be was her to save my life. I thought I had AIDS. I got dropped down to, I lost like 60 pounds. I wouldn't eat. I had, all this weird stuff. My mom took me to a psychiatrist. He couldn't help me. I was fucked up. And so my mom and my family helped me through that stuff. I got over the hump. We got into 1988. March 3rd, 1988, we got together for the first time. My mom had bought me a brand new drum set she was so proud of me for quitting drugs. She knew I wasn't going back. Never, ever. I mean, it was one hard damn year, brother. And I had this kit. And so Mark and Doug came over. Rob had to go to college that day. He did a local college thing. We jammed. They were like, I can't believe how good you are on drums now. It was like my mind was clear for once, you know, and I sounded pretty damn good. And we jammed. I remember when the practice was over, we were like, man, we're back, man. Oh my God. Cause these guys waited for me. They were dear friends, man. My girlfriend waited for me. They waited for me. I locked the world out, man. The only thing that really good of that time came out of it was my mom said, all these pen pals of yours you made to your demo, you should be writing these people. And I made friends I'm still with today. I mean, worldwide over people, you know, just they're dear friends of mine. But anyway, so I called Rob. I said, man, we're back, dude. Tomorrow we rock, dude. You ready to rock? He said, yeah, man, no college tomorrow. We're gonna thrash our brains in. All right. So they said, well, let's go and celebrate. I said, man, I'm beat. I can't go, man. I'm just too beat, man. I'm physically not there yet. My mind's good. I just gave you 3 hours of double bass, and I'm still real light and a low for from losing all that weight. And so I didn't go. Mom's phone, the only phone in the house, her room, that had long distance. And she was asleep. And all of a sudden, somebody came running up the side of my mom's room on that side of the house. It was my sister. She said, you're never going to believe this. I said, what? She said, your friends are dead. I said, what? She said, all your friends are dead. They were in a car accident. I said, what? I ran across to her phone. Mark's on the phone. Mark had missed Doug, a guy named Larry, Doug's brother, Steve, and a guy named Sean and Rob. We're going to Rob's house to drink beer to party for this night. They went to Mark's. They missed him. Mark went to eat dinner with a friend. He just missed him. Well, they got a flat tire on the way there. They were all standing outside the car. Doug went around to the glove compartment to get a flashlight. He heard a noise. He looked up. Everybody had been hit, sideswiped by a van. They were standing in the street. Rob was killed. Doug's brother was killed. Larry was killed, and Steve, Doug's brother Steve was killed. And Sean saw the van coming and jumped up on the trunk of the car, and he got his feet caught, and it flipped his feet backwards. At that time, he was in emergency surgery to save his legs. Doug was a nervous wreck. Mark went there because he saw it on the news. It was only about 1 mile from his house. So the day we came back, this happens. You talk about losing your mind, dude. I wasn't all there still from the drugs. Doug's never come back from it. Doug's never come back from that.
Well, you could have been in that situation though, but you decided to go home.
Exactly. I mean, me and Mark talked about it then, man. It's like, that's how it happens. But it turned out it was an Asian man. He had been drinking sake with his wife at some party. He went in one car. His wife followed him home. He claimed the next day, it was on the news. It was everywhere. I mean, Katie Couric, all these people that went on to be big time, they were from our area. She was the lead reporter, Catherine Couric. She was up there interviewing Doug in his Voivod shirt. They were everywhere. And basically Doug just told the story, and it came on the news that the guy turned himself in. He claims he had carbon monoxide. I don't even know if he went to jail at all. He was a very rich Asian man with a lot of laundry money. He had laundry mats in the area. He may have served a little time. He didn't do much, and I think he had to pay out the family stuff. I never discussed it with anybody. Sure. Rob's family took all of his belongings, put them in the trash, and moved back to Germany. Our friend Larry's dad, he was very religious. That's how he vowed his thing. And Sean's family, Sean kept his legs. He still walked with a cane for years. And then Doug's brother obviously died. Doug's mom and Doug were a mess. And we didn't know what to do. I mean, it was literally like the happiest day of our life turned into the worst day of our life. Now, and that's where just keeping you there. That's where the name Luck of the Corpse comes from. We're like, we've got Doug's brought that up. Doug said, we've got the fucking luck of the corpse, man. Every time we get going, you get fucked up on drugs, fucking the accident. He's just freaked out. And I just thought, we're not going to jam anymore. Then one day he called me, man. He said, dude, we got to jam. I need this in my life. So we got back to it. And we went and played. We went and set up our Return of Deceased. And what was really haunting was it was literally like, I think it was the next street over from where the accident happened. We played a house party. and at this house party, this little crazy Asian kid, Japanese boy, he looked like something out of Death Angel, was going nuts to us, man. He was he was a tiny little thing. Long hair, almost like Cousin It and Addams Family. And he went nuts. And at the end of the night, my buddy Eddie said, hey, man, that's Les Snyder. He loves Deceased, man. I said, yeah, I talked to him. He said, I play bass, man. I love Cryptic Slaughter and Voivod. I said, you want to play for Deceased? He said, yeah. I said, come try out this week. So he came over. He wasn't great, but he had our attitude, and he was good enough to me. And we took him. He came into the band, and he became our bass player. So just from here, we started writing more material, which became the second demo, that's why you see no demo from 87 from us. It's 86 demo, 88 demo, which is Birth by Radiation. We went to a real studio called Inner Ear, where the Bad Brains and Minor Threat and bands had recorded. He sort of knew our sound. He was nice. He showed us the way. We paid like $600 to $1,000 to be in there. We did this demo. We got out and we started playing, man. We sold this tape for $5-6 and we sold about 2,000 of them, man. We started making a little bit of money and we got out and started playing our asses off, man. Parties and parties. And I remember the first time I sang, man, was at a punk party with a band called Creeping Corpse. Said, tonight I'm singing, man. Let's do it. And it worked, man. I was like, man, it wasn't as hard as I thought because I'd been singing it in my head all along anyway to keep time. And we were arriving. We were the only band in the area doing this. The only band in the area. Nobody knew what this was. Nobody knew what Hyrax was. Slayer was just now taking off. You know what I'm saying? So we had all this going on for us. We went into 89. We did another demo, Nuclear Exorcist demo. Same guys, same writing procedure. We're at Doug's house and everything. And I'm making all these pen pals. One of the pen pals is a guy named Matt Jacobson. He's out of Colorado. He's making Kinko's copy stickers. And, you know, he's just a punk rock kind of guy. And he tells me, I'm starting a label called Relapse. And we had no interest. Well, I won't say we had no interest, but we weren't really pursuing record labels at the time. We had a couple people ask us if we wanted to put a compilation track on something, which never happened. We said, that's the luck of the corpse again. And then we had a guy who was going to put out a 7-inch and then he died. And again, we were like the luck of the corpse. It was a guy named Slatko Dolik, had a label called Gore Records, which was a subsidiary sort of from Nuclear Blast Records at the time. So I told him, yeah. And I don't think Doug really wanted to do it because he was like, oh, they don't have any money. We don't have any money. How's this going to work? And I was like, we'll just start up at the same time. And so we signed with them. We signed a little contract. And we didn't like the way the third demo sounded, Nuclear Exorcist, which was at Inner Ear also. We didn't get to use Don, who we loved. It was another guy named Joey P. And he cared more about weed pills than about recording that day. So we decided to go to another studio. And so we went to a place called Oz Studios in Baltimore because Mark had done a college internship there. We did the graveyard shift. And by this time, we'd played all the local clubs. We were starting to make, we were literally becoming the local heroes. We were crazy. People knew the stories about us. We didn't take no shit. We went to play shows. Everybody would show up, go insane. These guys used to smoke PCP. These guys are nuts, right? I'm drug-free, alcohol-free at this time. Totally. You know, Doug's pretty much done with it too. And Mark's still zipping on the PCP pretty hard. And so we went in and recorded this Luck of the Corpse for Relapse Records. This was 1990.